Hello and welcome back to Everard Junction. In today's video we're going to be focusing on the end of the station. This will be a continuation from the previous video with regards to the general station detail. Whilst there's still a few more bits to do and a few things to tidy up, maybe a few more figures as well, it's certainly looking a lot more complete, and I'm quite happy now with the appearance of the station on this side of the layout. It's really nice to get rid of those bland station platforms that previously had nothing on them. So let's go back a few weeks when I started the process of detailing this end. Lots of bits of detail added, and of course it wouldn't be one of these videos if it wasn't lit as well. So at this end, I'm going to keep the station a little bit more open plan, I suppose, for want of a better word. We're not going to continue the canopies beyond where they currently are. I think it will be nice to have the station split into a sort of canopied section and a non-canopied section. It was quite typical back in British Rail days for canopies not to extend all the way to the end of the platform. The canopies tended to be congregated around the busiest parts of the station. So with this end seeing considerably lighter foot traffic, I think it'll look good just being able to see across those platforms and have some different bits of detail on show. Before we get started, let's take a quick look at some of the bits I'm going to use. So of course the station is going to need lighting. Without the canopies I need a different type of lighting, and I've got some of these from model railway scenes. I think they'll look quite effective. They of course need painting red. We'll have a good look at those later in the video. Of course we're going to need the typical Network Southeast mesh style benches. Still can be found today if you know where to look. Those are made by Scale Model Scenery, very effective. Got a few of those painted and ready to go. Some departure screens, these are from eBay. I forget the seller, but they're available in various colours. There's quite a few little bits and pieces on eBay if you do a bit of searching, little details and things like that. Always worth a look. Of course, no station would be complete without litter and rubbish. You can see we've got lots of newspapers and crisp packets and things here ready to cut out. That is a Scale Model Scenery kit. It's just printed onto simple plain paper, cut it out, soak it in some glue. Looks really effective, scrunched up and pushed into areas of detail on pavements, roads and other places around the layout. I've also got some drain covers, bits and pieces. Not sure if we'll add those just yet, but as the station platform surface is a bit more visible without being covered in canopies, maybe a couple of inspection covers or drains and things like that might be worth adding. I've got a few different styles to choose from. This one is made by Scale Model Scenery. You can also get them in the form of brass from Langley Models. And you can see there's a selection there, so might use them. We'll see how we go. And of course, any important addition to a Network Southeast station, the bin. That's made by Model Railway Scenes. Different styles available. Those are the hanging type with a bit of work, a bit of paint and a bit of branding. Look very effective. I've also got some of these platform clocks. These are again from eBay, the same seller that manufactures these. Other details as well, like information boards. That particular one is made by West Hill Wagon Works. I believe it was given away for free at a show or something. Looks reasonably good, so I'll make use of it. Some pigeons and some figures. Those are made by Fine Scale Figures. Time consuming and challenging to paint, but worth the time. Look really good. And of course, no station would be complete without the appropriate signage. So there's all kinds of bits and pieces there. Got platform numbers, things like that. That's a Scale Scenes kit. You just buy it, download it, print it off as many times as you like. I've also got some period correct advertising to go in there, and perhaps if space allows on the far platform we might add a billboard or something similar. These are printed out on photo paper and they were just found online and put into Photoshop, straightened up, colour corrected, and I just messed around with them until they looked reasonable. Obviously finding photographs of billboards from the period is quite difficult, and to find one that has been taken almost dead straight on, basically impossible. So whatever you find, it's going to need a little bit of editing in a program like Photoshop, but I've got several billboards that I've corrected and they should look quite good in place if space allows. No doubt I'll also be using other bits and bobs, but we'll touch on that later in the video. So that's the first stage completed, a bit of landscaping. Always at the back here, it always looked rather unfinished, so I've put a piece of retaining wall in there, just the top parapet walls, as the rest of it is completely hidden from view. That's the same Wills kit that's used on the retaining walls for the rest of the layout, and I've made sure that the various sections of the wall line up with the corresponding wall on the other side of the station. Just makes things look a little bit more symmetrical and thought out. Next, I've finally got around to constructing the platform at the end there. There's the platform ramp section at the very end behind the buffer stop. Much of that is still wet, it's still drying at the moment, and I've used the same tiling grout for the concrete finish in between the slabs. Once it has dried, it will dry to the same shade of grey as the rest of the station. And of course, to tidy all of that up, a little bit of additional ballasting and weathering with the airbrush using various rail match paints just to tie the area in and make this section look a little bit more finished. And finally, I have painted the platform lamps, wired them up and installed them. These particular ones are made by Model Railway Scenes, had them in stock for a while in my cupboard downstairs, finally got around to putting them on the layout. I've made a couple of changes, so as you can see the posts have been painted into Network Southeast Red. When you get these they are just sort of grey primer, and I've also cut off the bases and properly sunk the posts into the concrete platforms. Pretty much any lamp or street lamp that you buy for a model railway for some reason always has a little base attached to it, but obviously in real life lamps don't have bases. They are dug into the ground and set in place. If they weren't, then they'd simply fall over. So I always cut the bases off, drill a hole and sink the lamp about 5 to 10 mil or so into the baseboard, and it just makes things look a little bit more realistic. Obviously some more tidying up to do around the bases where these have all been drilled, but quite pleased with the results. Over at the back of the platform just there, I have fitted a fence. This is a scale model scenery kit that I've adapted slightly to fit the shape of the platform, and as you can see that's painted in a sort of British Rail blue type colour. I did initially paint it Network Southeast Red, but it was just too much and it made the scene look a bit overpowering. Still quite a bit to do, so I'm going to go ahead and start placing some of the detail and signage around the platforms here. It's not going to be quite as densely detailed as the sort of main portion of the station underneath those canopies as we're getting towards the end of the platforms here. So I want to sort of try and follow the real life look where there's not so much platform furniture at the foot of the station. Of course, I'll be adding the necessary litter and associated weathering, and there'll also be a few shrubs and plants and things to put around the area, especially over by the buffer stop where the retaining wall is. So I've made a bit more progress. As you can see, various signs, bits and bobs have been added to the platforms, and I've also added a couple of figures. Not many, just I think there's 2 figures so far. Obviously it's the end of the station, not going to find too many people at the far end of the platform, apart from your usual suspects, such as photographers. I've wired up the lighting and fitted some additional resistors to these new lamps to make sure the brightness is sort of nice and dull. Don't want anything to look too garish and bright. So let's turn the lights off in the room and see how it looks. So there we have it. I quite like that. I think the brightness of the new lamps is in keeping with the brightness of the rest of the scene, and you can see it's just applying a little bit of light to the platforms, but not really much further than that, although there is just enough light pollution to illuminate things like the livery of the loco that's parked there. You can see the enthusiast with his camera at the end of the platform. Good luck taking any photographs in this light, and you can see the billboard and stuff back there. Obviously you are going to pick up the back scene of the layout, so you can see obviously the back scene over there with the sky and stuff like that. You know, you can't scale down physics and light, so you just have to do the best you can. Obviously if this was real, that back scene would be black because it would be nighttime, but I can't change the back scene depending on whether the layout is set during the day or during the night. So there's a couple of compromises here and there that you have to live with, but I'm really pleased with the overall scene. It looks like a proper station, at least to me. But we're starting to get the effect I was looking for at the end of the station, a sort of gentle build up to the more urban scene towards the end of the layout. And you can see with the detail in the foreground how the station detail and the addition of the retaining wall at the back just there really help complement the overall scene. You've now got something to look at front to back, and it doesn't look quite so unfinished. So I hope you enjoyed that, and as always I'll be back as soon as I can with the next video.